Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video we are talking Todt, Anthony. And this story takes us all the way to the, kind of ironically named town of Celebration. I mean, it is Florida though, so that should give you kind of a, hint as to what's coming. Ain't good. In January 2020, physical therapist Todt was with his family in the Disney community of Celebration. He had some work troubles at his practice in Connecticut, but that's probably like the most minor thing that we will talk about. And we will start talking about it right now. The Todts were from the small town of Colchester, Connecticut, and although Anthony ran his practice there, the rest of the family mainly stayed in Celebration, Florida. They would hop, skip, maybe even jump, but mostly fly from Celebration to Connecticut pretty regularly. See, Anto, he ran a very successful physical therapy clinic in Colchester. He had many patients and had been running it for over a decade. And when it came to recommendations in eastern Connecticut, Mr. Todt would be top of the list. He was a big guy, literally and figuratively, in the town, was funny, easygoing, and good at what he did. Tony had been married to Megan for almost 20 years. They'd been together since high school in Montville, and Megan also had an interest in physical therapy with a master's from Sacred Heart University. Megan would homeschool their 3 children. Alec, the oldest at 13, 11-year-old Tyler, and 4-year-old Zoe. And their dog Breezy, age unknown. Well, she wouldn't homeschool the dog, I don't think. So while Anthony worked in Colchester, he would fly to and from Florida over the weekends, spending time with the rest of the family who lived in Celebration, a Disney-designed town just outside the theme parks of Orlando. It's kind of like what you'd imagine a town built by a huge multinational corporation would look like. And they rented a house, 5 big ones a month, at 202 Reserve Place. So this all kind of started around Thanksgiving 2019. Just a few days before, the Gobble Gobble Turkey Day, the family physical therapy, they began calling patients. See, Anthony, he had a family emergency. His wife was sick down in Florida and he needed to go. He'd look after his wife down there, and they'd reschedule appointments. No big dealio. That cancellation, we'll reschedule, turned over the course of quite a number of weeks into a full-on where'd he go? No patients were rescheduled, the cancellations were, well, that's all folks. Next thing patients knew is that they were closing for the final 2 weeks of December, and after a time the phone just stopped ringing altogether.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
And the family of the Todts were having no more luck getting through to them than the patients. It turned out that the Todts had sold the home in Colchester, and Tony, when in Connecticut, was staying with the family. Or in Airbnbs, hotels. But well, that's, where both the family of Megan and Tony lived. But now Tony and Megan were in Florida. Not like you can, just pop down, have a goo. They didn't really know how they were. Last they'd heard they were all down in Celebration, and communication with them was, off. Neighbours in Celebration hadn't seen the Todts either, but they were unperturbed by this as they thought, maybe they were out of town from Celebration for Christmas, maybe spending it back home, up the country. Around this time, a woman named Cindy, Megan's auntie, who she was very close with, kept trying to get in contact with Megan, Merry Christmas and all that. At the start, Megan would, text back, yeah, grand, all good, just gonna head out of town for a few days, going to St. Augustine. Won't have our phones with us, so if you don't hear from us, take a chill pill. Then they started getting texts from Megan saying they were too sick to talk on the phone, which, how sick do you have to be to not be able to speak on the phone? But regardless, they were still planning on heading to St. Augustine. Later, Tony texted Cindy saying they had arrived up in northern Florida, but Megan had lost her phone and that they were going off-grid. And that was the last anyone heard from the Todts. And that was fine, for a few days. Until it wasn't just a few days, and people began to worry where they were. Phone wasn't ringing, texts were getting no response. No one had any information on where any of them were. This continued until the 29th of December, when Tony's sister, Chrissy, rang the Osceola Sheriff's Office and requested a welfare check.
I'm wondering if somebody can do a wellness check on my brother and his family. They've been really sick for probably the past week and a half, and I can't seem to get a hold of them.
You said they were sick or something like that. You mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, they've been really sick. I guess they've had the flu, but they've had the flu probably for a couple weeks. They were really down and out during Christmas. The only one we've been able to talk to is my brother. And now, like I said, we can't get hold of any of them.
So the police, popped over, had a view around, but the door was locked, the blinds were shut. It seemed like they couldn't detect any kind of movement from inside the gaff, so we're like, all right, they're not here. It seemed like the house was empty and there was, well, there were no signs of life. Nothing of the Todts, nothing suspect. But the family definitely feeling something was suspect, and still no calls getting through, no word from him, no replies to texts. On the 10th of January, Chrissy called again requesting another welfare check.
Hi, I don't know who I need to speak with. I'm curious if I can have a wellness check done. I had actually called on December 29th, and I had an officer go out. Because I was concerned, my brother and his family, they had all been sick. But there's actually been more developments. There's actually an active FBI investigation that's happening up here in Connecticut. And I just, in conversations with my sister, my sister-in-law was making a comment about, and we just kind of put it all together, about basically the world ending on the 28th, and nobody has talked to them.
And around that time, the landlord of the Todts, their place, she called the Osceola Sheriff's Office as in yeah, I'm hearing that nobody else has heard of the Todts, nobody's seen the kids running around, and they were behind on their rent also. She had left an eviction notice on the door, which seemed untouched. Now, the day before Chrissy's, second requested welfare check, the Osceola Sheriff's Office, they also received a call about the Todts. But this wasn't kind of a, where are they? Well, it kind of was actually a where are they call. But this call was from the FBI. And it wasn't where are they out of the goodness of their heart. Tony Todt, he was under investigation for healthcare fraud. He was, allegedly, billing Medicaid for tens of thousands of dollars for appointments that never happened. They would have patients back 2015, 2016 who stopped needing, physical therapy, and hey, to Tony, they did, or at least on paper they did. So he would bill insurance companies, Medicaid, up to the tune of 130,000 bucks. Previously, the Todts office had been searched. Tony had been in communication with the FBI back in November and had admitted to what he was doing. Then he said he was going to Florida, he'd be back, and, obviously, he never returned. So they wanted his ass. Then, on the 13th of January, FBI agents knocked on the door of 202 Reserve Place. This time they weren't, gonna pop around, kick the tires, maybe see if they could peep in the window and job well done. No, they were gonna arrest his ass this time. And this time he was there. He was chillaxing on the porch. More officers arrived. Tony was arrested, and the police went into the house. And that is when they found the family. Tony was wobbly when they arrested him, weak. He had difficulty going down the stairs. In fact, he would later say They had pushed him down the stairs, the police, when his hands were handcuffed behind his back. They asked Tony, where was Megan? She's upstairs sleeping, Megan, come down. The kids? Can't remember. I think they might be sleeping in a friend's house. I don't know. Inside the house was dark. Windows, shutters closed, lights off, and the smell. Megan was found on the master bed, the children on the mattress beside. It looked like they'd been there for a while, like, I'm talking weeks. Very discolored, and they were in quite a state of decomposition. Tony told the arresting officers he had taken Benadryl. He was going to kill himself, and so he was taken to the hospital. It was revealed shortly afterward that the family had been murdered, the dog too, and that Tony had confessed to being the one that did it while at the hospital. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of animal cruelty.
I'm Osceola County Sheriff Russ Gibson, and I wanted to give you the latest update on the death investigation that occurred at 202 Reserve Place in Celebration. Deputies made contact with Anthony in the home along with federal agents, and he was immediately detained. A safety check of the home was conducted where deputies discovered 4 deceased individuals inside. The home was immediately secured, and a search warrant was obtained by our detectives. The reports of the autopsy determined that the cause of death of the 4 decedents inside the home to be homicide. Anthony has cooperated with the investigation, and he has confessed to killing his wife, Megan Todt, 42 years of age, whose date of birth is January 28th, 1977, and their 3 children. Alec Todt, 13 years of age, born September 26, 2006. Tyler Todt, 11 years of age, born December 30th, 2008. And Zoe Todt, who was 4 years of age, born July 23rd, 2015. Anthony also killed their family dog, Breezy.
It seemed like the family had been dead for about 2.5 weeks before they were discovered, which... yeah, as you can imagine, yeah. And Tony, he was with them in the house the entire time, which just gets more disturbing the more you think about it. Megan, Alec, Tyler, and Zoe had been stabbed to death. Well, they thought Zoe had been stabbed to death. She was so small and decomposition had gone so far they couldn't tell. It also seemed like they had been drugged with Benadryl. It looked like they had been stabbed to death while unconscious due to drugging. The dog had been stabbed to death also. Why would this happen? Everybody who knew them was completely shocked. This was like unimaginable. They couldn't wrap their head around this. Like, what? Megan, Tony, they had the cliche high school relationship. He was voted most likely to succeed. They seemed deeply in love with each other over, their almost 2 decades of marriage. It wasn't like they were fighting and that kind of usual shit you see. And he was a great dad who adored his kids and was so proud of them. There were no, giveaways, dead giveaway in this one at all. When you look at pictures from before and after, he looks like he's unrecognizable almost, When Tony's patients were asked, in the months leading up to January the 13th, was there anything, did he seem weird? Was he off in any way? And they'd say no, he was grand, he was just putting on a bit of weight, but other than that, a little bit less focused, maybe probably stressed and probably putting on weight due to stress, the FBI investigation for fraud. He had also been borrowing money from creditors. He was living well beyond his means, and then he was using, the fake billing scheme to pay them back. Employees at the practice hadn't been paid in a while. His office was searched on the 21st of November, and then shortly after he fled to Florida, telling the FBI he'd be back in early December. Meanwhile, telling his employees he'd be back in late December. And who knows what he told his family. Now, although, Tony and Megan, they seem to have, the perfect life. He had a successful practice, was kind of, maybe a bit of a big shot, or at least known in his town, and they rented a house in Disney Village. I mean, hey, like I just said, on the surface, it seemed like that anyway. Underneath was definitely something darker. We don't know how much Megan knew about the fraud. Probably not very much. But Tony, in his history, there was definitely something more insidious. Back in the 70s, Tony's father, Robert Todt, seemed much like his son, a fine, upstanding member of the community in Pennsylvania, a schoolteacher in Bensalem, married to Loretta and having 2 kids, Tony and his younger sister Chrissy. Robert Todt was also having an affair with a 17-year-old girl and also with a nurse across town. A nurse he was, engaged to, even though he was already married, so what a guy. So, in 1980, he approached 19-year-old John Chermonte, a former student with learning disabilities. Robert gave John a revolver and a key to his house. When Robert was conveniently out one night with one of his girls, no doubt, John came in drunk and shot Loretta in the head, then fled. 4-year-old Tony Todt witnessed this. Now, Loretta survived, even though she was shot in the eye. She didn't die, and both John and Robert were arrested when the plot was discovered. Loretta, throughout the trial, stood by her husband Robert. The jury didn't agree and sentenced him to 10 years. It was 10 to 20 years in prison. He did 10. John, due to a deal, got 4 years. Now, Loretta, she said she saw 2 people there that night and she believed that Robert wasn't involved. That it was just like a random kind of home invasion. But after he got sentenced, she would divorce him anyway and take the kids to Connecticut. Robert, still to this day, says that he's innocent. Won't get into that. But in reports about Tony's case, a lot has been made about, connections between him and his dad, and maybe what he witnessed that night.
Do you have any remorse?
How you feel,
Tony? Regret?
Why do you kill your family?
You're telling people you couldn't have done this.
What do you have to say to their family?
Tony, what about the dog? What about Breezy?
Say something.
So why, did this happen? Well, good question. One we don't have an answer to. And I'll say, by the way, right now that Tony Todt's trial is due to begin in late September 2021. But from his arrest in January 2020 to when this video is coming out in April 2021, a few things happened. Tony had a couple of things to say in jail. One of those things was that he was not guilty. Tony says he didn't kill anyone. He's denying that confession he made in hospital when he was first arrested. Said that was untrue. He's now saying, or rather implying, that his wife Megan is the one responsible for what happened to his family. In May 2020, 4 months after his arrest, Tony made a call to his sister, Chrissy. He said he didn't remember anything over that period from Christmas to jail. Yeah, man, that old one, believable. He was drugged or something, or in like a weird kind of fugue state, like in Breaking Bad, for 2.5 weeks with dead bodies. But at the same time, he does actually remember some things, but he doesn't remember the confession, and he was obviously talking shite because he said that's not true.
What's up, Cheesepuff?
It's good to hear your voice.
I've been held in isolation. I still am.
Are you okay?
I don't remember anything pretty much over Christmas and the first week I got here. I don't remember coming here. I don't remember anything. After the events, what happened, all that kind of stuff. I have no idea where I was, where I am.
Anthony Todt. I'm appointing the Office of the Public Defender to represent you. Your attorney has waived the reading of the charges. Judge Lattimore previously found probable cause for each of the charges. The bond will remain set as provided in the arrest warrant. No bond on the first 4 counts, $1,500 on count 5.
In June 2020, Tony wrote a letter to his dad, Robert, who he's been kind of estranged from after he may or may not legally did try and have his wife killed, Tony's mother. The letter, 27 pages long, fucking hell, tells a story. Tony's version of the story. And it's, yeah. He also wrote that he is 10,000% innocent of all these preposterous charges, both on this state case and on the proposed Medicaid fraud case. My wife and my children were, and still are, everything to me. I love my wife, still, very deeply, and it will be the hardest thing to sit there and tell everyone that it was her that did this when I was not home. And then she committed suicide in front of me. Well, see, the thing is, Tony, we know she didn't kill herself, because from the autopsy, the stab wounds were like in a downward trajectory. So, he blames depression, Lyme's disease, drug-induced hepatitis, miscarriages, and other things for, well, why he says she did this. Tony claims, he had to do everything for her. If I was there that night, this never would have happened. Hence the self-blame and self-condemnation. But because I was being selfish, I lost everything near and dear to me. And when I leave here in a couple of months, I will be leaving homeless and without clothes. Boo-hoo. Well, 1, you're never getting out of there. And 2, trying to make your dad feel sorry for you? Really? By the way, just point out, he means leaving jail, not, He also is planning, once he gets out, by the way, he's a load of lawsuits planned. He's going to set up a non-profit in his family's name. And that he'll be fine, by the way, because Megan, she had life insurance. Hey, so, it's all good. Seems to be looking forward to getting out of jail, and he won't be going to prison, of course. He seems very sure of this in this letter. Confidence. He starts off writing in print, by the way, and then changes his handwriting. He says this is due to, when he was first arrested, he was handcuffed, hands behind his back, and the police kicked him down the stairs. Once again, he says he doesn't remember much, but he remembers that. And that basically when he fell, he fucked up his hand and shoulder. He wrote that the day, which we're not entirely sure of what that date is, by the way, when it all happened, it started out wonderful. He was playing with the kids, Megan woke up, and was without pain for the first time in months. He later had to go to a condo they owned, just a couple of minutes away, to pick up a Mickey Mouse necklace for Zoe. Zoe and Megan asked him to do it. He told Megan that he might crash in the condo as Megan used essential oils that just wreaked havoc with his sinuses. Also, he snored, and as the family might be getting over a bug, maybe it'd be better if he wasn't there. He then had dinner, played basketball with his sons, and drove over. However, he wanted to take a siesta in the minivan, but he ended up oversleeping. He then woke up the next morning, and the vehicle was dead. He then walked home and found that dessert had been left out from the night before, and learned it had Benadryl in it. He found Megan at the top of the stairs. She said the kids were fine now that he was there, and then she told him she had a vision of the world ending due to a virus, followed by an invasion. By whom? Dunno.
Basically the world ending on the 28th.
She had apparently researched this on Quora and Reddit. Yeah, apparently he writes, she was meditating, had a vision of the end of the world, so she killed their 3 children to release their souls. This is elements of, Lori Vallow, that kind of stuff. Weird kind of like ritual cult stuff. Mad shit. Now, I should note here that it's believed they were killed right at the end of December, which is before, like, you know, the current pandemic, you know, would have become widely known. Meghan probably wouldn't have known about what was going to happen in a couple of months. She would have been, you know, back in the good old days, you know, Corona, what? Then he says, you know, while he was kind of cradling his kids, she kept sipping down Benadryl and then stabbed herself. And gave this, like, really weird, kind of long soliloquy as she died, telling him how great he was. Then he has memory loss or whatever and remembers nothing for like 2 weeks after that until the FBI knocked on his door. That's the letter he sent to his dad, and since then that kind of actually brings us up to date on the Todt family case. As I said, Anthony Todt will go on trial on the 27th of September. He's pled not guilty. What he has said, you know, what he wrote in that letter to his dad, he says that's the truth. That Meghan thought it was the end of the world and she wanted to release souls. And he's innocent. Seems pretty confident about that. The state, by the way, won't seek the death penalty in this case due to Tony's mental state. The trial is guaranteed to be a hoot and a holler, no doubt. I'm sure it'll be as batshit as this case already is. And I'm sure I'll cover that too. So expected part 2 of this video in about 6 months. Till then, that's the tragic and horrific story of the Todt family in celebration. In like what is the opposite of celebration. And we will leave it there for today. Thank you so much for watching. It's really appreciated. Please, if you can do anything for me, take care of yourself. And I will see you as always real soon in the next one. All the best. Mike out.